The Tenjiku Arc wastes no time throwing us into danger. Takemichi and his friends find themselves in a dire situation until the Kawada twins, 4th Division Captain Smiley and his Vice Captain brother Angry, swoop in for a rescue. After forcing several Tenjiku members to spill the beans about their hideout location, the group encounters Kakucho, and Takemichi is stunned to recognize him as a childhood friend. Despite their past connection, Kakucho makes it crystal clear where his loyalties lie, with Tenjiku and Izana. But before parting ways, Kakucho drops a bombshell that sends chills down everyone's spine. There's a traitor hiding within the Tokyo Manji gang itself. Takemichi leaps back to the present to investigate the situation, where he teams up with Detective Naoto and unexpectedly encounters Taiju Shiba. Taiju reveals crucial information. Shinichiro Sano, Mikey's legendary older brother, was actually the founder of the Black Dragons, adding another layer to the gang's complex history. Naoto's investigation leads to a shocking discovery. Kisaki Teta had faked his own death and is still pulling strings from the shadows. Before they can process this information, the trio is ambushed by Tokyo Manji gang members led by Inui and Koko. Taiju fights valiantly to create an escape route for Takemichi and Naoto, but Takemichi's conscience gets the better of him, and he turns back to confront Inui and Koko directly. This decision proves nearly fatal when Kisaki himself appears and opens fire. Naoto heroically takes a bullet meant for Takemichi and is mortally wounded. In a devastating turn, Izana orders Kakucho to execute Takemichi as revenge for causing Mikey's death in this timeline. As both Takemichi and Naoto face death, they clasp hands in what seems like their final moment together. With Naoto dead in the future timeline, Takemichi's anchor to time travel has been severed, leaving him trapped in the past and spiraling into despair. His emotional state is so fractured that he mistakes Hinata for Naoto, and in his confusion, accidentally reveals his time-traveling secret to her. Rather than reacting with disbelief or anger, Hinata demonstrates why she's always been Takemichi's emotional cornerstone by offering him encouragement and helping him rediscover his resolve. Reinvigorated by her support, Takemichi visits Mikey's house seeking answers and learns a game-changing piece of information. Izana Kurokawa is Mikey's half-brother, explaining the deep personal connection fueling this gang war. Before he can fully process this family drama, danger strikes again when Mucho Yasuyuki Muto, the captain of Toman's 5th Division, and his vice captain Haruchio Sanzu arrive with hostile intent. These two officers are specifically tasked with hunting down traitors, and they've come for Takemichi, dragging him to a warehouse where he discovers Inui and Koko are also being held captive. The warehouse confrontation reveals the depths of betrayal within Toman when Mucho exposes his true allegiance. He announces that he was part of the infamous S62 generation, a notorious group of ultra-violent juvenile delinquents that included Izana and several of Tenjiku's top executives. Declaring his intention to defect from the Tokyo Manji gang to Tenjiku, Mucho then proceeds to brutally torture both Takemichi and Inui, as a method of coercing Koko into joining him. Mucho specifically targets Koko because his exceptional financial acumen and money management skills would be invaluable assets for Tenjiku's expansion plans. After enduring the torture, Takemichi manages to get Inui to safety, and in their recovery time he shares intimate details about Shinichiro Sano's life, influence, and legendary status as the original leader of the Black Dragons. The conversation reaches an emotional climax when Inui pledges his complete loyalty to Takemichi and symbolically passes on the prestigious title of Black Dragon's leader to him, marking Takemichi's growth from a cowardly time traveler into a genuine gang leader worthy of respect. The situation escalates dramatically at the next Tokyo Manji gang meeting when intelligence reveals that Tenjiku has been systematically targeting Toman's division captains in coordinated attacks. Both Mitsuya and Smiley have been severely injured in these ambushes and are now hospitalized. Inui brings forward critical intelligence, suggesting that Tenjiku is planning a massive, decisive attack on February 22nd, the date marking the Black Dragon's 11th anniversary, turning what should be a celebration into a potential bloodbath. Understanding the gravity of the threat, the Tokyo Manji gang begins preparing for what could be their most challenging battle yet. The next morning brings a quieter moment when Mikey personally entrusts Takemichi with protecting Emma, while he goes to confront Izana at their brother Shinichiro's grave, attempting to resolve their family conflict face-to-face. However, just as Takemichi experiences a horrifying realization, he's never once seen Emma in any of his trips to the future, which can only mean one thing. Tragedy strikes. Kisaki executes a cold-blooded hit-and-run attack, mortally wounding Emma in one of the arc's most devastating moments. Emma's death sends shockwaves through the Tokyo Manji gang, with Mikey and Draken completely distraught and broken by the loss of someone they both cherished deeply. At the gang's emergency meeting, the harsh reality of their situation becomes impossible to ignore. They are vastly outnumbered, facing 350 Tenjiku members with their ranks already depleted from injuries and betrayals. Faced with these overwhelming odds and still reeling from Emma's death, the majority of Toman's members make the practical decision to withdraw from the conflict entirely, believing that fighting would be suicide. However, Takemichi refuses to back down. In a passionate speech fueled by his determination to prevent more deaths and change this dark future, Takemichi convinces his fellow gang members that some fights are worth taking regardless of the odds. His unwavering resolve reignites the fire within Toman, and they collectively decide to face Tenjiku head-on. The gang mobilizes and heads to the docks for the decisive confrontation, knowing full well that this battle will determine not just the fate of their gang, but the lives of everyone involved. The massive brawl at the docks begins with Paehyan delivering an inspiring victory in the opening match against Tenjiku's Shion Madarame, which provides a much-needed morale boost to the outnumbered Tokyo Manji gang members. However, the initial euphoria quickly evaporates as Tenjiku's true strength becomes apparent. Izana himself enters the fray and brutally knocks out Paehyan with ease. Amid the chaos of battle, Inui finally reunites with his former partner Koko, hoping to bring him back to their side. Unfortunately, their reunion is bittersweet, as Koko coldly insists on remaining with Tenjiku, citing financial gain as his primary motivation. This rejection hits Inui hard, as it becomes clear that their once unbreakable bond has been fractured by Koko's obsession with wealth and the trauma from their shared past. Through a heartbreaking flashback sequence, we finally understand the tragic origin of Koko's obsession with money, which has driven so many of his questionable decisions. Koko was deeply in love with Inui's older sister Akane, a girl who meant the world to him. Their lives were shattered when Akane was gravely injured in a devastating house fire, and despite surviving the initial trauma, she required expensive surgery that her family simply couldn't afford. Forced to watch helplessly as the girl he loved died due to lack of money, Koko became consumed by the belief that wealth could prevent such tragedies, twisting his values and relationships in the process. Back in the present battle, Mucho steps forward to replace Koko in combat against Inui, leading to an emotionally charged fight between former allies. Meanwhile, Hakai and Angry find themselves in serious trouble as they face off against the infamous Haitani brothers, Ran and Rindu, whose perfectly synchronized fighting style and years of experience working together give them a devastating advantage against opponents who lack the same level of coordination and teamwork. The fight against the Haitani brothers reaches a critical point as Ran and Rindu prepare to brutally finish off Hakai, showcasing their cruel and sadistic fighting style. But just when all seems lost, something extraordinary happens. Angry begins crying, which triggers his terrifying transformation into the Blue Ogre, a berserker state where his combat abilities skyrocket to superhuman levels. In this awakened state, Angry single-handedly demolishes the Haitani brothers, then proceeds to take down Moki and even Mucho in succession. However, even the Blue Ogre has limits, and Kakucho, Tenjiku's second-in-command, manages to defeat the exhausted Angry. Kakucho then continues his devastating run by taking out both Inui and Chifuyu, eliminating 3 of Toman's heavy hitters in rapid succession. Seeing this, Takemichi realizes he's the last one standing capable of challenging Kakucho. Despite knowing he's vastly outmatched in fighting ability, Takemichi courageously faces his childhood friend in combat, taking brutal hit after brutal hit while refusing to stay down. The situation takes an even darker turn when Kisaki casually walks into the fight and draws a gun, pointing it directly at the battered Takemichi. Even with a gun aimed at him and his body already broken from fighting Kakucho, Takemichi refuses to back down or show fear to Kisaki, embodying the unwavering spirit that has earned him respect throughout the series. Takemichi surges forward and lands a solid punch that knocks Kisaki to the ground. However, before Takemichi can catch his breath, an even greater threat emerges as Izana steps into the fight personally. Yet even while being dominated, Takemichi's courage and refusal to quit serves a crucial purpose. He buys just enough time for reinforcements to arrive. Mikey and Draken finally make their entrance to the battlefield, and surprisingly, they've brought Hinata along with them. Hinata reveals that she made the difficult decision to tell Mikey and Draken about Takemichi's time-traveling secret, understanding that only this truth could reignite their fighting spirit after Emma's death and convince them to join the battle. With his resolve renewed by Emma's memory and his brother's challenge before him, Mikey declares his intention to fight Izana one-on-one, and the two brothers begin their highly anticipated confrontation. The clash between Mikey and Izana delivers everything fans hoped for, as the two brothers prove to be evenly matched in a spectacular display of martial arts mastery and raw power. They trade devastating blows, each fighting style reflecting their different upbringings and philosophies, with neither able to gain a decisive advantage over the other. However, the psychological warfare proves more effective than the physical combat, when Mikey calmly states that he would have gladly accepted Izana as his brother and family, if given the chance. This simple declaration of acceptance strikes deeper than any punch could, causing Izana to panic and lose his composure as it challenges the foundation of his hatred and the victim narrative he's built his entire identity around. He then grabs Kisaki's gun and threatens to shoot Mikey. Kakucho, despite his own injuries, attempts to calm down his friend and leader. But in the chaotic struggle between the three of them, Kisaki coldly seizes the gun back and without hesitation shoots Kakucho, showing his complete disregard for anyone's life but his own plans. As Kakucho falls from Kisaki's bullet, the situation spirals further when Kisaki prepares to shoot Kakucho again to finish the job, viewing him as an obstacle that interfered with his plans. In the split second before Kisaki can pull the trigger, Izana makes the first truly selfless decision of his life. He throws himself in front of the bullet, taking the shot meant for his loyal friend and suffering a mortal wound in the process. As Izana lies dying in Kakucho's arms, he makes a devastating confession. He's not actually blood-related to the Sano family at all, meaning his entire war was built on a lie. In his final moments, Izana reveals his lifelong struggle to find where he belongs and his desperate desire for family, finally allowing vulnerability after years of hatred and violence. Kisaki attempts to flee the scene with the help of Hanma, Draken breaking off to fight Hanma and delay them while Takemichi continues pursuing Kisaki on foot. The chase eventually leads them to a parking lot that holds dark significance. This is the exact location where Hinata died in the present timeline, bringing their conflict full circle to where so much tragedy began. Takemichi and Kisaki engage in one final, brutal brawl. During their struggle, Kisaki finally reveals his ultimate motivation for all the chaos and bloodshed he's orchestrated over the years. His grand plan was to transform the Tokyo Manji gang into a nationwide Yakuza organization, believing that achieving such power and status would finally impress Hinata and make her love him. Before Takemichi can defeat him, Mikey and Hinata arrive at the scene, which causes Kisaki to panic and flee once more. Takemichi chases after him and poses the question that's haunted him throughout the series: is Kisaki also a time traveler? Kisaki opens his mouth to answer this crucial question, but a truck suddenly strikes him in a fatal accident. Kisaki dies instantly, taking the answer to one of the series' biggest mysteries with him to the grave. In the aftermath, police arrest the surviving top officers of Tenjiku, effectively dismantling the organization. Takemichi visits the hospitalized Kakucho, who miraculously survived his gunshot wounds, but rather than feeling triumphant, Takemichi feels deeply uneasy about Kisaki's sudden death and what it means for the future he's been trying to change.